We are back online for another fun week of fantasy. Drop, hold, watch. I got that order right because I'm Fowls and you are.
I'm Nick, and it's Drop Hold Watch DHW. If we're trying to acronym it, let's go. Let's just drop some people. Let's not even muck around here. Let's get rid of some players. Do you want to get rid of them first? Do you want me to get rid of them?
You can drop away, man. I'm just trying to bring that screen up so let's
All
look
right.
at who they are. Who are they? Give me a
So
name.
I'm going in for the like. I feel like this category is always big names, right? They have to be people that people have drafted, high roster slot,
Has
but
to be a
also people
reason why
already
you're
know.
nominating them, I guess.
Has to be a reason why we're nominating them. And it can't be your obscure, like, oh, this 10th string guy who's getting 10 minutes a game is about to drop down to five.
Yep.
My first player on the list is Russell Westbrook. So
Oh,
it's Russell Westbrook. The intrigue of him always is the weird category that he goes off in. So I've put up his box score. A couple of games ago, he went off for 22 points against Brooklyn, so that's nice. But every other game is in single digits 2, 9, 5, 5. He always seems to give you some rebounds. He could give you six, but he could give you one. The assists, he could give you seven, he could give you two. The steals, which is probably the category that he is the most appealing in, he always gives you a steal, but he could give you five, right? But here's the thing, those are all the coulds that he could do, but here's what he will do as well. He's going to turn the ball over
yep.
3 to 4 times,
Mm.
and he's going to shoot 20% or less from the field. Is he going to have a big game when you drop him? Probably. You go and drop him today, he'll probably have a big game tomorrow. But then he's going to have three more bad ones. This is who Russ is, unfortunately. He hasn't figured out how to be a bench player with the style of play. He's not a jump shooter on a team that really needs him to be. You know what? I can say that, and then he'll get five blocks and five
He
steals
did start.
tomorrow.
He did start yesterday, I think, because Jamal Murray hit his head. Is that
Because Jamal
correct?
Murray is out. And there's that consideration as well. But you look at the box score here, he's getting at least a half of the game time, and he's struggling to get double digits in points, and he's struggling to do other things.
Drop him.
It's
Drop
it's
him.
a drop for me only because uh, there's those young players that get more minutes on other teams, which we'll talk about soon. It's worth it. The next one is Fred Van Fleet.
Oh,
This is a name that people would know, and I'm sure was drafted relatively high in your league. I've highlighted him because he's playing almost 40 minutes a game.
mm,
That's a lot of minutes from a player. And what is he giving you in those minutes?
not much by the
It,
looks of it. I never looked at his stats this season, but is it 12
so
points on 20 something% shooting?
his season
Whoops.
stats, not his last 7 days, but his season stats, because his last 7 days were actually worse. He's giving you 12 points, three rebounds, 5.7 assists, 1.5 steals, no blocks, and zero point 0.7 turnovers. But the shooting is also relatively bad. In fact, he regularly is now going 2 or 3 for 14, 15, etc. Will he bounce back? Maybe. But again, this is a weird conversation about Houston. I don't know who the man is in Houston because Jalen Green has good games and then has bad ones.
Mm-mm.
Shengun has good games and then has bad ones. Is it Tari Eason all of a sudden?
So
I don't know if Houston knows what they're doing.
they're deep. They're deep.
They're deep, and we talked about this, but they're deep. But if you've got Fred Van Fleet, he's giving you 40 minutes a night. That's not 40 minutes a night production. You would be better off taking someone else who plays half that time but gives you the same stats. I've got players on my roster that can get those stats in half the time and be far more efficient. And then my last one, you wanted to talk about this in another segment, but I'm going to just briefly mention it now. I'm actually just I you can sell, you can trade, or you can drop, but I'm taking Dejounte Murray out of the question here.
Ooh, okay.
I I understand that he had fractured his hand, so this is where medical jargon can get a little bit confusing. But I'm just bear with me here. He hurt his hand, and it turned out to be a fractured left hand. I don't know how it works in your hand, but he needed to have surgery for this. So he's had surgery on his hand, and he has now 4 to 6 weeks in recovery.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be shocked if that gets pushed out even further. And by the time that he comes back, he's going to be returning to a team where a dynamic may be unclear. It's already an asterisk for him because he's got to come into a team where CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson are all ball users. So it's hard to know what his true stats are going to be. He gave you 14, 8, and 10 on the first night, but that was probably cut short. But then you got players like Jordan Hawkins kind of coming into his role. And I know that they've paid him and I know that there's stuff there. I'm not sure what he's going to return as and what he's going to give you in that period of time. You could drop him and then pick him up in 3 weeks if you wanted to stash him again. If someone dropped him, I'd be surprised that they pick him up. Maybe you've already picked him up and you're doing a stash. I'm not too sure, but those are my three players that I would drop at this point.
Hey, look, your name's all right. Your name's all right. I think I think I've got a Rockets guy that I'm nominating too, but obviously a different end of the scale here, which is Reed Shepherd, man. A lot of
Yep.
people were high on Reed Shepherd. Obviously, when draft came around, he was all second favorite, I think, for Rookie of the Year. Not happening for him right now. And it's not having a terrible rookie campaign. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you've grabbed Reed Shepherd, hoping for a bit more production from him, he's not getting the minutes, 8 minutes a game, give or take.
No.
2 points. Not much more than that. It's time to drop Reed Shepherd. Maybe look at him again after All-Star break. But then again, depends where the Rockets are in the playoff race. They're suddenly competitive
Correct.
now, so this may not be his season to be a fantasy relevant player yet. Yeah, that's the reality,
Do
I
you
think.
want to do you want to hear something crazy about Reed Shepherd?
Yep, yeah, well.
His season stats, like totals, because I'm looking at the totals.
Yep.
His total is 15 points, 4 turnovers, 1 block, 1 steal, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 threes made on 6 of 15 shooting.
Mhm.
That's just an average game from some players. But that's what he's done in his
All
entire
season.
season so far.
All season.
That's not good.
Second
I
name
like
I
it.
got here is you know what? I was so high on these twins. I went and dropped his brother already. All right, I'm talking about Osola Thompson. Um, they haven't
Should you have
really.
dropped his brother?
I did drop his brother, and I'm saying he is now also on the drop radar. If you have Osola Thompson, and this is a different situation, obviously. He hasn't played a game yet this year, and he's got medical condition, blood
Have
clots,
you?
and
Yeah, that's not
and
good.
and
That's
that's
Chris
that's that's
Bosh
that's probably
retirement
yeah
stuff.
that's probably even worse than some of these other bone bruises and stuff we've talked about, because I think blood clots are such a dangerous area to tread. You have to tread carefully. And he's not cleared to return yet. They keep listing it as, oh, he could play the next game. You know what? At this rate, I think he's like, could he play this year? Will he be ready for 2025?
Will he play again? Like, this is what
Well,
actually caused Chris Bosh to
yeah.
have an early retirement. Chris Bosh was only 33 or 34 when he had to step away due to blood clotting issues. And the nature of NBA travel, it's planes. Planes are the big reason why people can have blood clotting
Mm.
issues, and that's the danger. And the fact that he is getting on a plane every second day, yeah,
If,
I didn't
if
realize that. That's unfortunate for him.
Yeah, man. If I grabbed him, I stashed him. I think it's time for me to cut him loose, and anyone else out there, that's what I'm saying. All right, last game now. I guess you know what? A bit of it, what we're talking about each week, probably I would imagine is what we actually do ourselves or what we're thinking clearly. Yeah. So my advice really probably mirrors some of my actions here. And I offered you this guy. You didn't buy it. I'm fine. Whatever. So be it. Okay. I'm saying you should drop Dante DiVincenzo. Okay.
Yeah.
I made that decision. I offered him to you. I thought maybe you might want to take a fly on him. You didn't. It's fine. I understand why. And I went and dropped him now, I think. Okay. And look,
And no one picked
I
him up.
I think, well, not yet. I think he's still on waivers right now. But he will
Yeah, no one's
have
going to
those
pick him
he
up.
will have those hot games. Maybe he's if you're looking in the East right now, he's gone to the West now. Obviously, it reminds me a little Bogdanovic at the Hawks. Yeah, and he's that sort of guy that also off the bench goes microwave hot sometimes, maybe for a period of 1 week, 2 weeks tops as well. Gives you maybe 5, 6 games, crazy stats, great shooting. You go grab him, grab him, grab him, and then what you face is a reality of maybe a few weeks of now he's like shooting 1 from 8, and scores single digit points and doesn't give you much else in that sort of situation. I think the decision I finally came to with him, and I was really high on him, but he is in a totally new scenario now. He left the Knicks, he had a really great season. He was starting there, he's gone to T-Wolves, freezing in Minnesota from what I understand, right? It's getting cold there now, and clearly his shooting's gone cold, and he's back to the bench. And guess what? He's never really averaged more than 10 points a game. That's something that I guess I looked at the further stats that he actually historically has never averaged more than 10 points a game, and he had a really up career year last season. And I guess we're all high on him maybe building on that, but clearly now his situation is not helping his cause. So I'm saying he's a drop candidate for me too.
Well, that's the minutes, right? It's probably the most underrated analysis you can have of a player when you're looking at their stats. It's minutes played. And so Dante was cliche on the New York Knicks with
40
Tom
minutes,
Thibodeau.
40 minutes.
And
Mm.
Tom Thibodeau plays everybody 40 minutes. And you know what? Unless your name's Fred VanVleet, in 40 minutes, you should give some decent stats. So yes, his change of circumstance didn't work. Thank you for trying. I really did think about it. I was like, the only reason why I even considered it is because what if Trey Murphy doesn't come back
Oh,
because he has a hamstring
you're still getting
issue?
some production out of Dante
Exactly. You're
versus
getting
zero.
something versus nothing at this point. But there's a potential risk reward. But we'll talk about that in a bit. 3 players to hold. These are players that are on your roster. They might be doing okay, they might not be doing okay, but just ride that wave, see what you can do for it. And it's a bit ironic because I dropped this guy last week, but I'm actually going to say Chris Paul.
No,
I'm actually
no.
going to say Chris Paul. So,
I wanted to grab him too, and then we should win and grab him. Like, damn it.
yeah, so this is look, I dropped him. I dropped him for the right reasons at the time, but unfortunately, he's surged upwards. So when I dropped him, I had watched a bunch of single digits scoring performances, and now since then, 16, 14, 19, and 15. But his minutes also went up. That was something that I didn't anticipate either. I really expected him to sit around that 28 to 30 mark, and now he's exceeding that, and it looks to upward trend because they're being more competitive in games. The assists were always floating around 8 or 9, but now he's hit double digits.
He's
The steals are pretty consistent. The
he's doing
rebounds pretty
he's doing
consistent.
everything you hope to do,
He's
except
doing
you didn't
everything
wait
that I
an extra
drafted
week.
him to
You
do.
didn't wait an extra week.
So, this is sometimes the reason why I say watch though, and I guess this is to help me sleep at night. He may be injured in a week's time.
That's
He
true.
may not
That's
play
true.
anything.
That's true.
And that's the hardest part with Chris Paul. And that's why I say hold him because right now his stock is going up. And perhaps then you explore a trade in a week or two when you've had consistent double-double production. Because it wasn't unfathomable to think that he could average 10 assists on this team. He's got two very good forwards that he can work with. So that's my first regret. The second one is going to be Jeremy Grant. I've obviously been tracking the Western Conference games, and Jeremy Grant's been very odd. Sometimes he has 28, 25 points. Sometimes he has 8. And I'm saying to hold on to him because he's on a bad team and he seems to be one of the guys that actually gets to put the ball on the hoop regularly. He also gives you some rebounds, some assists, some steals, and some blocks. He's giving you everything on a bad team. Can have a really bad night and shoot poorly and have low score, or can have a really good night and give you a better surge. Again, he might surge upwards and then Portland might reevaluate his role. They might look for a trade and there's something to do there. So worth a hold just on that. And then my last one is going to be Bradley Beal. So Bradley Beal's box score is hilarious to look at right now because he's currently listed day to day, and that's because he played last night. And if you look at his box score, he plays and then he doesn't, and then he plays and then he doesn't, and he plays. And it seems to be a bit of a cycle. But he's steady, gives you 15, 5, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1 block. He's steady, but he's just not playing every other day. And he always seems to have an injury. Right now it's an elbow, but it could be something
You're
different next
hoping for
week.
more from Bradley Beal, though, isn't that
You
the
hope
case?
you hope for more from Bradley Beal, but he was drafted for $1 in our team, so maybe there's an expectation of who he is at this point. The reason why I'm saying hold is because if he starts to string together like 5 good games in a row, I would then trade him instantly because I don't expect him to play a full season as a Phoenix Suns fan as well. And he's rostered on 86% of rosters, so players that high typically have to be traded. And if he can have a good stretch, then it's worth exploring.
No, I like him. I like him. I've got two bit more obscure names here. I only got two. Let's go with two. Is first kid here in Boston here. If you got him, you should definitely be holding him right now. Peyton Pritchard.
Yep.
Man, I don't know if he's a watch candidate anymore, because surely he's being snapped up. He's probably not snapped up in our league. That's the point, right? He's available in our league, yeah. But surely somebody wants this kid production right now. He's like balling out 18 points, sort of 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and you could do way worse. You could do way worse. That's the point. Like he's doing more than Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, but people are
Correct.
probably going like, who's Peyton Pritchard? That's the key, right? But he's a number one option, I guess, the sixth man off the bench for the Celtics right now. Celtics are rolling. Maybe this is the part where you don't always consider as a fantasy owner, but now it's relevant. Is that if your team is really good, your bench becomes relevant. Yeah, and if you've
Well,
got if you've got players that can produce off the bench, like he is right now as a microwave in a sense, he's reaping those benefits.
there's also probably a case to be made that when your team is good and your starters do their job, the bench guys get more of a run. Because Boston and OKC probably sit in the same category right now. If they're not in a closely contested game, they're in a 20-point blowout, and there's really no in between. And so everyone's getting a run on this team. And Peyton Pritchard currently is averaging 30 minutes, averaging 18 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. I'm seriously trying to figure out
And
if I should
threes.
pick him up.
And threes, man. He dropped
The
six
threes
threes
made.
last game, man. So
And his worst game scoring at 7 points, in that game, he gave you 5 steals. So in his worst game, he still did something really well. So
you you owe me one if you
I,
pick up Peyton Pritchard, all
I'm
right?
just going to be, I'm just going to be, you keep talking. I'm just going to be looking real quick.
Hey, look, I'm gonna know a second name. It's like a second name here to hold right now. Your main man, Jordan Hawkins. You obviously were all over Jordan Hawkins. Then he had a little bit of a quiet patch, but he's put together now 3 games of double-digit scoring. He's getting his minutes 30 plus 35 plus minutes the last 3 games as well. Look, I think more players have gone down. CJ McCollum has gone down now. I think this craziness what's going on with the Pelicans and the injury situation. I swear, it was literally 2 or 3 seasons ago the same thing happened for them. Okay, and they're already like getting injury exceptions to try and call up an extra roster, fill an extra roster spot, and so on and so forth. And of course, they still got Zion, and they don't want to overtax him. So Jordan Hawkins, man, I think anyone that's grabbed him right now, I'm presuming you have. Again, he is available in our league. I know how much you talked about him, but how come you haven't grabbed him? All right, but I think he's definitely a hold. He's going to give you some good production right now, while the Pelicans just battle with all these injuries to key players.
He's on my watch list. So that's a spoiler for a future one.
Right now, what we're witnessing is a guy thinking really hard on who to pick up and who to drop on live on.
I'm going to be honest with you. This pod could result in. I need to make a trade. That's probably the big conversation, but we'll keep going. You only had two, so we're going to talk about our watch players.
Let's watch these players.
So we'll segue straight in from you. So Jordan Hawkins is still on my watch list. The reason why I'm putting him on that watch list, or at least I feel like he's eligible for that, is his current rostering. So despite the fact that he's surging high, he's only rostered on 14.9% of rosters. So statistically speaking, he's there. Take him. You're right. It's the injury situation in New Orleans is very fascinating, and by fascinating I mean expected.
Hey Nick, do you go Pritchard or Hawkins?
So that's a really good question. Who would you take in this scenario? Well, funnily enough, outside of rebounds, he's actually giving you significantly less in the other categories. Peyton Pritchard gives you almost 2 steals, and he's going to shoot statistically better because his team is better. Jordan Hawkins has Cam Thomas energy. It's not the comparison I want to make, but it's the comparison I will make, where he might look up one night and he might be like, wait, I just checked the roster. Are you serious? I'm the only one that's suiting up tonight. And then he's going to probably go off for 30, 40. He's got that potential. But considering that he's there, I'd watch him because he's there. Now, this one is a close to my heart situation. It's Nick Richards. So Nick Richards is a guy that plays for Charlotte. And outside of yesterday, he has played very well. In just 138 minutes, he has 55 points, 50 rebounds, and 12 blocks. That's really good on 60% shooting. Not a great free throw shooter, but when you're talking about a guy who has the potential to average 3 blocks per game and give you a double-double as well, that's something to look into. Now, he's currently got a sore shoulder. I think he went for a dive or a loose ball and it kind of got tangled up. And he's also playing for Charlotte and he's a center. And if you try to follow Mark Williams' career, you'd understand the joke behind that. If he plays, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do because a double-double with 3 blocks would help my team immensely. And he's doing that in, usually about 30 minutes. But he is currently injured. That's why I'm saying watch, because he's currently taking up a roster slot for me when he probably could have sat there and most people wouldn't realize. Then the other one, this one is a bigger name, but he is not rostered in our league currently, and he's actually only rostered at 39.1. It's Jeremy Sohan. So everyone is talking about Wemby, and rightfully so. He had that alien 5x5 game, and he does all his stuff. But did you know that there's a power forward who's averaging 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block, basically, and not really turning the ball over and actually shooting quite well? Even his free throw percentage is better this season, despite the fact that he shoots it one-handed. This is the Chris Paul effect, right? We talk about this every time, but when Chris Paul goes to a team, he helps them win, and he usually finds someone and makes them better than they are.
Yep.
It's no disrespect to Jeremy Sohan, but he turned DeAndre Jordan into an All-NBA, All-Star player, and that was because he did his job properly. Now, Jeremy Sohan, if you're not aware as well, had 3 consecutive plays. There was a pick and roll play against Minnesota. Minnesota, uncharacteristically in the NBA, by the way, had to call a timeout because they actually couldn't stop it. They had a play that was run 3 times consecutively that they could not stop. If you look at his box score here, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block, that's fantastic because you know how I feel about stocks. And he's only playing 30 minutes a game on a team that currently is young.
Grab him, Nick.
Again, someone I'm thinking about. Again, I need to facilitate a trade. I'm ready to go. We'll talk.
Is that your third name? I lost track.
That is my third name.
All
Yeah,
right, all
sorry,
right.
I really got narrative driven there.
No, it's nice, mate. It's nice. All right, I got two names, man. I got two names here. I'm gonna nominate here. There's plenty of candidates out there to watch, but I'm probably going a little bit more. I'm digging a little bit deeper down here in the league in the sense of what is out there to consider right now. And here's a name to really watch: is Tristan da Silva. Tristan da Silva, right? And he is you're probably like, who the hell is Tristan da Silva? In fact, when I saw
I
his
am.
photo, I was like, who the hell is Tristan da Silva? But we spent a first round pick on this kid. He plays, a small forward role where we're obviously already deep with our players, here in the Magic, rotation. We seem to really like to take talent that overlaps, but this kid didn't literally play any games until Banchero went down. And we'll talk about Banchero later a little bit more too, right? And what we're going to do, we should maybe think about doing with him if you're holding him right now. But he's suddenly getting 20 and 31 minutes, okay? And that's not a bad situation for any player. And we're talking about fantasy here. Fantasy is the difference between production and not really the result in real life, right? Because I think we've dropped both games, and I'm expecting us to lose a whole bunch of games now. Because let's be clear, our best players are out, yeah, and Tristan da Silva is not going to replace that production. But from a fantasy perspective, could he give you 15 and 5 with a couple of little peripheral stats? We'll find out because we've never seen this kid in the NBA, so I think it's definitely worth a watch. You're like, oh, who's
I
this
had
kid?
to. I
There
had
you
to look it
go.
up.
There you go.
And what you're referencing before you go is this is the same reason why Jordan Hawkins was mentioned for me. This is opportunity via injury, right?
Absolutely.
And we know that Paolo is about to be out for 6 weeks, so you might just ride this for 6 weeks. But it also then begs the bigger question: if you see any injuries on other teams, or if you see good teams, like let's say Jason Tatum rolls an ankle, for example, right? And he needs to be out for a week, but they're going to let him rest for 2 or 3 just to be extra cautious because they can afford that in the regular season context. Then that's when other guys can slide into that role and just get that surge for a bit. But yeah, nice.
Oh, look, my last name here is one that probably should be close to your heart too. Let me try and figure out how do you spell it. It's a double C because it's Zachary Rashaya. Rashaya.
Zachary Richard.
Rashaya. I'm saying this kid's worth a watch now. He's
Yeah,
actually
because the
jumped
stocks.
onto the
It's the
radar right
stocks.
now because he's starting. That's the first step.
Yes.
Step number one, he's starting. He didn't start the season off. You dropped him after 1 week. I thought you might last, 3 or 4 weeks with him. You gave him 1 week, just like you gave CP3 1 week. Regrets for CP3. No main regrets now yet for Zachary Rashar. But obviously you may regret this come sooner than later. That's the reality because now he's starting to get minutes. He is the number one pick. The Hawks are not going anywhere. The Hawks are probably worse than what we thought they would be. Yeah, maybe that's the first reality check we have to think about as a Hawks fan. I thought maybe they'd scrape 500. I think they're going to struggle to hold 500 now. Okay, and they're clearly not struggling at 500. They would be, like we're talking about, ninth or 10th play-in spot at best. But they probably would be better positioned to try and just chase a lottery pick in a deep draft. And therefore, they'll play their players like their rookies a little bit more. And like you said, his stocks, you love stocks, man. Nearly 2 stocks a game right now in early days. And he's still going to be a bit of an up and down shooter. He's not always going to give you double digits. But again, there's players that's worse out there like Dante DiVincenzo right now. I think he's definitely worth a watch right now. That's my suggestion. If you're looking for someone in a deeper league, perhaps this kid, I think he's only going to swing upwards. This season for him, just from a fantasy perspective, he's going to trend upwards, but perhaps going to trend upwards faster than what we thought. That's my last watch for the day. Do you have anything else you want to add? If anyone else has any comments they want to put down the bottom, I saw we had 3 comments we had to answer this week. Man, I had to spend 4 minutes of my time thinking about that. No,
The
no, not
admin
really.
of this the admin of this channel has just increased immensely. No, I want to get into some trades. So link that video, segue it because I want to talk trades.
All right, no worries.